Take that off.
Morning, everybody. How you all doing? On time. Trying to get better at doing that for real, for real. Whole week, obviously, the focus is on Minnesota. Thank God for Thomas Berry in more ways than one. He is literally at ground zero at all this madness and foolishness. We will definitely get into that. Another thing we need to talk about also is MLK's birthday. His actual birthday is January 15th. If you're not aware, the holiday tends to be the so this year it'll be on January 19th. More importantly, though, uh, the most pressing news of today is 2 weeks. 2 weeks on February the 2nd, pitchers and catchers report for spring training. Look, y'all know what I do. I do it every year. I'm a baseball kid, so it is what it is. That's what's going on. I've been enjoying my weekend in a manner in which I usually don't enjoy it. I've actually been enjoying it. I went out last night and caught a comedy show. I went to see DL Hughley last night. Great performance from him and his opening act, Bo last name. And that came today. I'm going to see the Celtics play tonight. I've never seen the Celtics play live in person, that is. And I am a huge Celtics fan, so it is definitely on my bucket list. And I'm going to knock that off today because they're playing the Hawks tonight here in Atlanta. So I'm going to go check that out as well. So that's boom, boom. And then tomorrow, I think I'm really going to just chill. I think I'm really going to just chill. I had some drama at work this week, so it's going to be a welcomed change of pace. And just in general, the weekend has been a welcome change of pace because, again, normally I'm doing this, doing that. Boom, I got to leave from here right after work because there's a gun show and I want to go over there and see what I can see. Um, but yeah, it's been good. I'm looking forward to continue to be good. I'm looking forward to a great show today. I'm looking forward to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, however long that holds on and holds up, to be honest with you, because what we're seeing from the reporting, what we're hearing from folks on the ground is not encouraging at all. Not at all. But Brother Barry has a very unique perspective on that as he is there on the front lines, if you want to call it a front line. What's going on, TB?
What's going on? I wouldn't necessarily say I am on what they would consider the front lines because that's typically for the people that are out there, what they consider now boots on the ground. But I am here in the Twin Cities. A lot of the actions that have happened, ironically, have been in neighborhoods that I've actually lived in. The shooting that happened in South Minneapolis to Renee Good, that happened in my old neighborhood on the South Side. And then another neighborhood that I lived in for a short period of time in North Minneapolis, right off of Lindale. They had a Latino fellow, I think it was Ecuadorian, who was shot in the leg. And then, they had a bunch of tear gas. They pretty much tear gassed the neighborhood for the most part.
And flashbang grenades. Them joints was going off like fireworks.
Flashback, for sure. But, man, it's all about, when a president wages war on its own people, this is what it looks like. And what I have been critical of Twin Cities leadership of is watching or ignoring what was happening in Illinois, ignoring what was happening in New York and New Jersey, and ignoring what was happening in California. And then when it arrived on our doorstep, everybody's acting like they're shocked. Well, it's almost like the Titanic. Some people want the music to play and they want to keep dancing as the ship goes down. And I still seen people who are still hitting the clubs. I see people who are still out kicking it, like yesterday, karaoke, the whole time. Like, it does not become serious until it hits them. And I feel like, we are at a fight for our democracy as a country. And my thing is, if we are diligent enough to watch how this president is talking, They are labeling people in Minnesota as the resistance. And I think that word is very, very, peculiar because you know what a resistance is. A resistance is typically somebody who is resisting an enemy combatant who is trying to take over your government, your country. Pam Bondi is on television calling the people of Minneapolis as having a resistance. And I think people need to listen to the
Domestic
words,
terrorists.
domestic terrorists, but that resistance to me is more important because a resistance that doesn't speak to us, that speaks to them, who they see themselves as. And I think, on social media where you see black folks trying to correct everybody's English, punctuation, and everything else, no one's catching on to this idea that they're labeling us as a resistance. And the idea, as you said, the domestic terrorist piece, but also some of the other verbiage that they are saying. Never mind what your eyes say, listen to my lying lips. Renee Good was not trying to hit anyone. Renee Good was not following ICE. Renee Good was dropping her 6-year-old off at school, trying to go home. Right around the corner from her home is where she got murdered. That's very important. And people hop online and play devil's advocate. I was kind of appalled by some of the things I saw online yesterday, because we had a litany of elected officials on the federal level who came here for testimony. My girlfriend was in town. I didn't get a chance to see her, take her out for dinner. Jasmine,
Damn.
but she was
And
here.
that head was snatched too. She be doing it up.
Yeah, but she said something that I stated on here plenty of times, is that people should just label this as white supremacy and stop calling it anything else. Because if you don't label it as white supremacy and you come around and crouch it with all of these other fancy words that everybody wants to use, oh, it's just white inferiority, man, come on, man, let's stop playing. We know that the brain is programmed to understand what white supremacy is. We understand what that's about. We don't see them as being superior. We know that's an idea, that's an ideal that they have about them. We understand that Hitler had the idea what he called the master race. Why do you think all of a sudden Trump is funding more Planned Parenthood inside of the ghettos? I thought this was the party that was against abortion. Oh no, not anymore. Not if they can kill us off. But back to Minnesota, which I find odd is that a federal judge has said that ICE can no longer detain, arrest, or check peaceful protesters. And when I saw that, I said, that's interesting. I wonder, are they going to obey those orders? I wonder, are they going to send more provocateurs in? Today, there's a rally that's happening downtown with the Proud Boys and a few other neo-Nazi groups that will be downtown, and they'll be going to the areas that's heavily populated by the Somali community. What would you call those provocateurs? All you need is a few provocateurs. And before people, think that I'm making this up, they have no issue with killing one of their own to incite a war, to incite combat. They have no problem with doing that. This idea that we think that they're going to play fair or what have you. And I just want to land on this bit. And this is, as I posted this morning, Black Minnesotans are in a peculiar game of four-way chess. And if you've never played chess, four-way chess is real complicated. But four-way chess is, if you like me, I love chess. Four-way chess is interesting because, in order to take someone else's piece, you have to open yourself up to have a piece taken from you as well. And sometimes it can be every man for themselves on the board, all four players against each other. And other times you realize that some people are better chess players than you, and y'all might need to gain up on that one player to get his pieces off the board. But here's the peculiarness in all of this. In four-way chess, when you checkmate that person that you and maybe two or three other people may have gained up on, or two or three people have gained upon, who gets the final checkmate to take over that army so that they can now become the strongest army on the board? because you don't split the army. And that's the peculiarness in this, because what we're stuck in is a situation where we have been neglected by the state government, by city government for quite some time. We know about racial profiling. If you know why black men in this country keep ID on them, it's because black men know about the probable cause law. 72 hours
Mm.
under the clock. That's not black women don't know nothing about that. Black men know all too well about that. Black men know about being inside of the gang task force book. Black women don't know about that. And what I'm telling you, and this is not to say black women don't know anything, I'm just telling you about experience. This is why the difference in experience, this is why you don't see black men from the 90s rushing to get into the front of the line to be a part of this fight, because they've experienced this. They've already been scarred by this. They know what it's like to really be public enemy number one. So for my locals who are watching this, my suggestion to you, and I've been suggesting this for quite some time, sit still. What I mean by sit still, do the bare necessities. Go get your groceries. Go take care of all the things you need to do. And what we need to do is starve out the corporations overall. Don't make it about Target. Make it about all of them. Let the people who Donald Trump says he speaks to, let them harass him about not getting any money. Let them harass him about no one's showing up to the grocery store that he's saying he's reducing the prices. No one's showing up to the gas station because no one's going nowhere. Everybody's calling off of work because they say they don't want to put themselves in danger with ICE. The state should call a moratorium on rent, a moratorium on utility bills, and they should say that, hey, we're going to take money out of our bonds and we're going to cover that for Minnesotans who are not going to be able to pay rent, not going to be able to pay electricity, whatever. If you can prove that you don't have the dollars to do it, fine. If you can prove that your occupation shuts you down, fine. If you found out at this time it was not safe for you to go find a job, which that would be almost anybody, fine. We will cover your costs. There will be no evictions. It's the same way we did throughout COVID. And you let the state just sit down for at least a month or two. And if all you did was went to the grocery stores and got the bare necessities, I'm not talking about no restaurants, I'm not talking about no movie theaters, I'm talking about no parties, no nothing. If all those corporations had to turn around and talk to him about them losing out on money because of what he's doing, then this conversation changes. And I feel like that's the part that we have to understand. Getting out there, following ICE, throwing things at ICE or whatever the case, man, that's gonna agitate them.
Blowing the whistles.
Blowing the whistles. I mean, that's just like, yo, I mean, and I mean this sincerely, like, yo, we have to think smarter. The isolation piece, do not isolate yourself. If you are in the metro area or you are in the surrounding suburbs, don't go to bed at home by yourself. Go stay with a relative. Because what I'm fearing that I'm going to hear in the next few weeks as this progress, we're going to start hearing more and more stories about sexual assault. We're going to start hearing more and more stories about kidnapping or people just disappearing or people that are
People
not
getting snatched up.
showing up, people being snatched up and nobody knows why. And part of it is because people just don't have an awareness. Some people, honestly, the only way that they get news is through Facebook. And how can you really get news when you got people online selling content like prostitutes sell pussy? Like, it's just so much content that's going on at this time that people are trying to make their twos and fews on content that you really can't get intelligent news because the content is typically riddled in narcissism, is riddled in gossip, celebrity or personal gossip.
It's bullshit. Just label it what it is.
It
It's
is.
bullshit.
So that somebody can flip a coin. So somebody can flip a coin, but at this time is also a perfect distraction. And I just want to make sure that I let my people here be aware of that. Be careful. Make sure, and I've said this many a time, don't panic. I'm not telling you to panic. I'm not in a panic state, but I am in a awareness state. I'm also military minded in how I move. I'm not wasting my movements. I'm making sure I'm tracking to make sure nobody's following me, nobody's following my children, making sure that we are doing all of the perimeter checks, safety things around my house. I'm still driving past my mother's house, even though she's not here, and going about, a girl's house, making sure everything is good over there, whether she knows it or not, because she's a hard head. She's a hard head. She's one of those people that got to find out that fat meat is greasy. But you got to understand that about our climate, because we have believed the hype the white folks have told us for a while. We have believed that black folks are your enemy. We believe that it comes from us. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is a different type of federal government. This is the USS. This is the USA of Nazi Germany, and they are going to exact pain on American people. And I heard yesterday, once they leave here, no, that was Thursday, I heard they are going to go to Portland, Maine. That is the next place that they're looking to go. They're going to
Portland,
take,
Maine.
yeah, they're going to go to Maine. They're going to occupy Portland, Maine. And that's how I know that they have a targeted list, because you'd be like, why Portland, Maine out of all other places? But they are really trying to disrupt. And this is about disrupting the election. Now, one last piece too
I
that
agree.
I forgot. Minnesota has some irregularities in the voting poll as well. Even though Kamala Harris won Minnesota, she barely won. But that guy who was doing those stories on irregularities had Minnesota as one of the places where voting irregularities took place. And for the first time in a long time, we have a log jam inside of our house with our state senators and our state reps with the Republicans. Now, I want to tell you all those irregularities, that's just chess. So they know what they're doing. They know who they're targeting. And I can almost bet that Portland, Maine, and some of these other places have had irregularities where their governors are tied up in a fight with Republicans in the House or the state that they're in, which isn't giving them leeway. Governor Walz could not do some of the progressive things that he would need to do that he could have done 2 years ago based off of the irregularities in that election. And that's part of the holdup, especially when you have Republicans who are calling for Governor Walz to be impeached. And now you have the DOJ who is saying that they're going to investigate Governor Walz as well as, Jacob Fry. Now, I want you guys to keep this in mind. The same DOJ that refused to release the Epstein files, they got time for this. The same DOJ who put out, they said Jack Smith. Okay, you investigated him. What happened? Got thrown out. Trisha James, what happened? It got thrown out. It is definitely a kangaroo court full of do-nothings. So don't worry about that investigation piece. It does not mean that Mayor Fry has done anything wrong criminally. It does not mean that Governor Walz has done anything criminally. And one last point, if they felt like they really had something, they would be asking for a recall against Governor Walz if they really cared what the people thought. Why haven't the Republicans asked for a recall? Because they know they don't have the votes. And that's just where I want to land the plane. This is just crazy kabuki theater.
One quick adjustment. You said Jack Smith was investigated. It was James Comey, but I knew where you were on.
No, no,
Like,
no. It was
like
Jack.
I messed.
Remember, it was Jack. Because remember, Jack had got. Remember, they tried to investigate Jack. Oh no, you're right. It was James Comey. I'm sorry, that was James Comey.
Yeah, like I got messed up with Shador the other day. You got me. I
What you
appreciate
call him,
it.
Shadell?
We got to have one another.
What
Yeah,
you
I
call
called the
him,
boy
Shadell?
Shamar. I'm like, fuck. Look, it was all mixed up in my head.
You're right.
You know what I'm saying? But mine was
Jack,
all just
Jack Smith is the one who got the nuclear bomb. They can't. They don't
that's
want to
it.
put him in
Yes.
court. He got the nuclear
There
bomb.
you go. They don't want to talk about that. See, this all comes on the hill. And not to take away from anything you said, you know what? Let's put that to the side. Let's put that to the side. Let me press with some direct questions. So, as you said, you're not in ground zero, but you are there in the Twin Cities. We talked the other day. You said you were riding around and you didn't see ice. From the way the news looks, it looks like ice is every damn where. So we're saying that you're seeing this more being in a concentrated area then.
Well, okay, but this is the question now. Now they said they have more ICE there than they have police.
They do.
So to be able to scour to kind of check and cruise your city and not see 3,000 people, there's three times what you all got going on in that little area.
It ain't a
Then
little.
it seems weird to me.
Yeah, it ain't
Okay, the
little.
news can find them, but you didn't. But not only are they there, it's more of them than y'all. So
Well,
it seems like
Right.
when you say kabuki,
it is. Because look, here's the thing: there's more gangbangers here than there's police. It's more criminals. The thing about this idea of, man, there's more of them than us. Well, they're not trained, and you are. So there you have it. And how would you treat criminals on the street who ain't trained? Like at some point, we got to ask these guys who say they're rough, tough, and dangerous to grab their nuts and do their job. Let's be real, because the why are we treating these white supremacists that they've hired who probably have no training at all, and we can tell by their antics, they're slipping and falling on ice. Like, listen, ice better be happy brothers ain't out there, because we're not gonna let you slip and fall without stumping your ass out.
you know. So in Kansas City, we have legislation on the bill.
Timbo.
So in Kansas City, we have legislation on the bill to make them have to uncover their faces. So while we do welcome ICE here in Kansas City, this is a Republican state. Um, uh, but because they believe in the actual thing they doing, they don't understand why you want to cover your face. Come on, open, pull the thing down.
Well,
But
I
that
mean,
was one of the things that Thomas talked about. His disappointment in local leaders and not being proactive on doing stuff like that. I caught an article just yesterday too, from Maryland in Baltimore County. They're not allowing ICE agents to snatch people. You cannot conduct your business. That's not true. You cannot conduct a no warrant snatch or no warrant interview in any public buildings in Baltimore County. Nope, we ain't doing it. We're not allowing it. But those are the things that Thomas said that he's disappointed in from local leadership because they saw what happened in Chicago. They saw what happened in other cities and they did nothing to be proactive about these dudes coming in. To your point, Thomas, I'm gonna shut up and I'm gonna let you go. You're right. The question really is how many white supremacists have been hired, how many Proud Boys have been hired, how many January 6 rioters have been hired. We will not know because they wear these damn masks. So it prevents us from really getting a clear picture of the face of the people whom are behind these not provoked to that level acts of violence against just regular citizens. You know what I'm saying? And uh, I think that there are way more folk whom have been hired to do this, who are the folk whom were um, incarcerated or charged because of their protests during January 6th and or just
mhm,
white supremacists in general.
mhm.
Brother Jamar said slave patrols for real, for real. You're right, bro. Brother Jamar, you are absolutely right, sir. And this is what Rodney has been saying for quite some time. Look, they are giving these folks bonuses for their arrests. Uh, you talked about the sister, the young lady that got murdered. She was murdered. Let's be clear about that.
Mhm.
Uh, and she has a wife,
Mhm.
and she was a part of her son's school. There's a committee there that was giving people information about ICE. Is this a situation where she potentially was targeted? I don't know, but I won't put nothing beyond this current regime. Again, can't call them an administration. I'll call them a regime. I will put nothing beyond them because Trump has shown just how petty he can be. And what's that boy name? The one that's always calling for a fight. Not Steve Bannon. Oh gosh, god dang, it'll come to me. Um, but
Miller,
he's all yeah. Thank you to Stephen Miller. Thank you. He's always talking trash too, and he seems like a kid that used to get his fucking lunch money taken every day on the playground. Let's be real. He looked like a little punk that got his ass whipped every day on the playground. Got his money taken from him. He do. He comes across as that dude.
Mhm.
He comes across as the dude that got his ass whipped every day in school and got his lunch money taken. So
Oh,
this is an opportunity.
he ain't nothing but a punk
Hmm?
bitch. He ain't nothing but a
Oh
punk.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
This is the opportunity for him to to retribution on everybody and anybody just because he can. He's smoothed up to Trump, and he can do whatever he wants to do right now.
You know what's odd is that so Minnesota is important, and when we talk about denaturalization, Minnesota is the home of the Dred Scott case, and people forget about Minnesota's history. Minnesota is the last stop on the Underground Railroad. Minnesota had to deal with slave catchers when it was just the Wisconsin Territory, who would come from Missouri, who would come from other southern places to kidnap black folks who made it here. Like Minnesota has history, like a serious history, and people don't really understand the importance of this North Star state. They don't. Minnesota is also has been programming in what we call social services more than any other state. Now, the thing that I find ironic on television is they have been talking about sanctuary cities. Well, let's ask, how do they know all of these criminals per se that the states don't know? Who bust the immigrants from the South to the North? Could that have been Texas? Could that have been Alabama? Could that have been Georgia? Could that have been Florida? Could that have been South Carolina? Could that have been Tennessee? Were you busing people and you knew who these people were, and you have a list of these people because you sent them here? Let's remember the whole sanctuary city piece and them and what happened inside of New York. And then think about these places where they're going after these people. These are people that were already close to the border, close to them. That if they wanted them out the country 4 years ago, they could have had them out the country. So I just want people to listen to some of the rhetoric that the Republicans are stating. And I want people to really understand that this is a party of projection. They project. If they say somebody else is stealing, best believe that they are stealing. If they say somebody else is a terrorist, best believe that they are practicing and they're planning terrorism themselves. And again, the irony of what's happening in Iran and the cyber rattling to the Iranian people telling them that if your government stands up against you while you guys are protesting, we're going to bomb them while you at home sicking your border patrol and your ICE agents on your own people. Well, sir, who's supposed to check you when you are illegally violating your constitution? How is that not a conversation that's being had on the floor in the Senate? And this is something else, and I want to be shorter today because I got a lot of talking. I got to even hop on a call with the NAACP in a bit. But I do want to say this, man. It's time that people understand that elected officials have been getting away with a free lunch. That's part of the problem. The free lunch is not talking about the full situation, being elected as leaders and not having to lead, being elected as leaders and not having to bring back bacon, being elected as leaders and being able to point the finger consistently at the people who are supposed to be their voters when things don't go right versus them not speaking up, them not being ahead of the curve, playing along with the partisan. I want to say partisan politics, because a lot of the politics with the Republicans versus the Democrats is the Democrats think it's partisan. The Republicans look at them as enemies. They want them off the board. And when you got two different combatants and everybody's playing by separate rules, one think they can vote them out. The other one's like, yeah, we just want you to die.
Oh, yeah.
We just want you to die. They don't want them gone. They want them to die. And if we don't understand that, because I can bet dollars to donuts, I don't even need to see Renee Good's car. I know Minnesotans and LGBTQ folks here, they always got what on their car? That rainbow sticker. I bet it was something on that car that they saw that woman was a queer woman. And I can almost guarantee you dollars to donuts at that point, her life did not matter to them, because in this white supremacist ideology, she is what? She's a traitor. She is a traitor and she's worthless. So let's just keep this in mind when these conversations are going. And for years, black men have been told that we were the hate mongers. Remember, 2 years ago, they said we were the most dangerous beings in America. Remember? And you got killed not as a woman, you're going to get killed as a black man. No, you're about to find out about Todd. The Todd that you fantasized about so much, the Todd that you guys have been on these reality TV shows and all of these what's names talking about all of this stuff about how you have been romanticizing, sexualizing yourself for him. Now you're about to find out about Todd. And you're going to find out Todd don't want you in bed neither. Todd wants your ass off the map too. So can we please, while this is all going through the country, can we take a moratorium on black men versus black women? Can we put that rhetoric to bed? Can we put that shit to sleep? Can we also ask the people in Minnesota who is asking the YNs to step up and do something? Young brothers, do not listen to these people. Do not
Stay at
listen
home.
to people. They're asking for you to come out and commit crimes and you to risk your life and you to go to jail. Ask those Negroes that they lay up with to go out and bust a grape in a fruit fight in Welch's backyard, please. Don't ask these young brothers to go out here and act wild and get themselves together. That cachet of weapons that we got in North Minneapolis, you know what they did the next day, Lee? They've been on a manhunt, tearing up the city, trying to find those guns. They left those guns there on purpose. They didn't let them get those guns. That information that they put out there with all of the stuff that they had about where the ICE agents are coming from, what their plans is, and whatever those vehicles that they said they left out in North Minneapolis, they didn't run and scare. They left those there because they wanted you to hop online with your face and your voice. So now they have a reason to come and hunt. You gave them a reason to hunt. And until they get those weapons, and trust me, they're going to kick down all kinds of doors, not finding the right person, but they're going to go after the families. They're going to go after the friends. They're going to be back in the community searching for those weapons because now they have a probable cause. That's the kind of stuff that we have to think about. Do not let people trick you into doing foolishness because these people will come back and they will kill you.
So the cache of weapons, you told me about that the other day. I still didn't see that story. Go a little bit more into that, please, because I did some research. I didn't see anything.
So I'll share the video with you. It's when they had the situation when they shot the guy in the leg. ICE was leaving the neighborhood. And when ICE was leaving, they had a weapon stash that was on the back of one of their vehicles, so they say. And they pulled the stash down. And in that stash is like a lock box, right? They were flipping the box. And they got these amateur journalists who are out there recording everything, not blurring faces, not changing voices. And you could see them flipping this thing over and then busting the cache open. And soon as I saw that, my boy, I said, God, Lee, that's just not smart. Like, that's just not smart. And then the next morning, I wake up and my son says, hey, you know, they already know that guy who did that, he got a warrant out for his arrest. And the county already knew who he was. So imagine if the county knows who he is, guess who else knows who he is?
Oh, the feds definitely know.
Now, 6 months ago at the NAACP, we had a meeting where they were telling us about these cameras that they were going to put on every stoplight in Minnesota. Those cameras have facial recognition software. When I tell you all, they have technology that a lot of you are not prepared for.
Yeah.
I called Lee about the Motorola license plate tag.
Yeah. Yeah. The air tags.
The air tags where they Lee, the story goes, they have a couple. The couple's following ICE around. So the ICE agent scans the license plates, knocks on the window, and he calls the driver by her first name and asks her what she's doing. She said, I'm just doing my civically duty. He said, okay. So the ICE agent pulls away. Now they're back and they're following the ICE agent. Guess what the ICE agent leads them? To their address. The ICE agent pulled up to their house and told them, "Are y'all going in and get your ass in the house, or what happened to that lesbian? What happened to you?" And got in his car and pulled off. Y'all can play if you want to. There's safer things to play with out here. And I'm just telling you, brothers, sisters, be smart. Supplanted infiltrators to co-opt the movement. That's very true. But I will tell you, the movement is not 2025, brother. They studied, they broke this. I mean, it's not 2020. They broke this down. They knew what happened with what went wrong with George Floyd, and that's also why they came back here, y'all. They felt like they took a L. And you know anything about white supremacists? When they feel like they take an L, they have to replay that war over and over again. Even if we get them out of our city, even if we get Trump out, they're going to always have, if they feel like they lose here this time, they're going to always have a space in their heart where they're going to feel like they have to replay this. And so I just want our citizens to understand who you're dealing with and make sure that folks are really just think. Don't panic, but think.
So, Rashi, I'm gonna let you get in because I'm building a couple of questions I want to ask, and then Rodney's on
Because
with us.
I'm like,
Morning,
it's
Rodney. What's
11
happening?
o'clock. Y'all might as well let it run. Y'all two are on the road. I was going to log on off and let it run.
Rodney, you have some questions?
I just sent a link about, I think his name is Paul Gutierrez. Gutierrez was arrested for stealing suppressors from an FBI vehicle and rifles. Is that the story that you're referencing, Thomas, or is that a different one?
Different story.
Different.
So there
Different
was
story.
two. So the federal government is losing weapons and stuff in Minnesota.
That's what they want us to believe.
That's what they. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what
what I say. They just losing it.
right.
Okay. And what about this door-to-door thing? Because didn't the court just say that police can go door to door to look for a suspect? How does that relate to ICE, since technically ICE is not the police?
So with ICE, they were saying that, they don't have for peaceful protesters. That's what they were saying, and observers. They didn't say anything else. Like that was a like I was telling Lee, it's like they already kind of like baked in their reason. So that piece about the peaceful protesters, that was a ruling that was just last night. Those guys who, or that person, or those people who because it was a few people that was in that video, and I fear for those people. They were going throughout North Minneapolis and other parts of Minnesota looking for those people last night or yesterday, and they're still searching for them. So what I was saying, Rodney, is they're going to let that play out because now they got a reason to kick doors in, right? Because they're trying to get the weapons back.
So the other thing I had is Governor Walz, when this sort of jumped off, had put sent notice to the National Guard, and a statement was made that he would activate the National Guard to protect Minnesotans. I haven't heard anything. Of course, I probably missed it, but I haven't heard that he's actually activated the National Guard. If he has, where they are and what their role is or will be.
So he hasn't activated them yet. I believe that he's worried about if he does, he doesn't want Trump to not, to turn around and use them since they're there. And once again, with agitators, same agitators that we had in 2020 that was here burning things down. There's a lot of out of town plates here right now. And there's a lot of people who are not, and that's the thing I'm like looking at some of the stuff that's taking place, and I'm like, this is not typical Minnesota behavior. Who are these folks? And I just want us to be mindful to not be drawn into this mess, because they fund both sides. They'll fund ICE and they'll fund the agitators. And hey, if one of the agitators kill one of the ICE guys and that helps get them faster to the point, they're okay with that. If one of the ICE guys kill one of the agitators and that helped them get faster to the point, they're okay with that. But Rodney, right now, no National Guards. As a matter of fact, I think Governor Walz is kind of just on a lot of fronts having to deal with a lot of things. The calling for him to be impeached by the Republicans in the state. And then you have this DOJ investigation with him and Mayor Fry. So there's just a lot of things that's happening with Governor Walz, which, that this is part of the Trump doctrine, right? Though a lot of things that you at one time to get you to panic, to get you to be confused. And I've seen Walt shaking hands with one of the national congressional members that were here, and he looks stressed. He looks worn out. He looks like he looks defeated. If I'm being real.
So there's some states like New York, Texas, Florida, they have their own, or the governor of those states have their own paramilitary force, that not the National Guard. These are separate entities,
Mhm.
and this is under the full control of the governor.
Mhm.
Has Walls thought about implementing or getting his legislature, if he doesn't have it, to implement the same thing so that he can have his own security force separate from law enforcement and the National Guard?
The way our legislatures are set up right now, Waltz couldn't get anything through the House or the Senate. It is a log jam. It is a log jam like we've never seen before. And that's why part of the antics that are taking place by the Republicans in the state are able to take place, because really the Democrats really can't do much about it.
What? So this is a big question for me. What are the elected officials at every level telling the people so that the people can protect themselves? Are they letting them know what's legal, what's illegal, and that they have a right to protect themselves?
So they're not telling people per se that they have a right to protect themselves. They're telling people, they have rights about they don't have to let ICE into the home, that they don't have to show their ID, and those things sound good in the vacuum. But I'll go back to what I'm saying. Being a black man in America, yeah, we've heard that too before, and we also know about PC holds, and we also know telling a cop that I ain't got to show you my ID could get your ass whooped. And that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing a woman who was going to a doctor's appointment snatched up out of car. We're seeing a brother and his lady that was going somewhere, and they just pulled them over at a stoplight and made them show their ID and asked them all kinds of questions on both sides of the car. And so I know that the elected officials are saying these things. What I would like to see the elected officials do is at least have patrols patrolling. I drove from North Minneapolis to South Minneapolis to South Minneapolis to North Minneapolis, and I did not see a police officer. That's rare. That's rare.
And where that's the other question is, usually states have state departments of safety, and those they work for the governor. What is their stance on what's happening? So, in other words, when I believe her name was Renee Good got shot in the face,
Mhm.
what happened to the agent that shot her? Did they arrest the agent?
Oh, that agent was
Did,
gone. That agent is gone. They moved that agent out the house. The people who showed up to move him out the house had masks on. That agent has raised over $600,000 on GoFundMe. The car, the government has seized the car. They won't let our state, they won't let our U.S. congressional member go to the ICE site here to see what's going on at the site.
but Brother Barry, why didn't they just arrest him?
Because, brother, they were not prepared. Like, this is what happens when you're not prepared. These are all of the excuses that you're getting after the fact. But the fact of the matter is that the police here locally just was not prepared, and they should have been prepared. And that's just that's the ugly truth. I know people feel a way when you say that about the folks that provide those chicken dinners for them, but just they were not prepared. He should have been arrested on the scene. He should not have been allowed to leave. And there is enough police in the third precinct. I know that's my old neighborhood, that they could have surrounded ICE. It wasn't that many ICE agents at that scene at that particular time. They could have arrested him, but they let him get away. And allowing him to get away, he's out of this state. He's no longer here.
So now that this has happened, is what best practices have they come out with, best practices for
They have,
your state
they have,
that
they have
other
not.
states could use?
They have not, because unlike the governor inside of Illinois, unlike the mayor inside of Chicago, Chicago has a larger police force. The governor inside of Illinois has stayed vigilant. He hasn't backed down, and he was very proactive. The mayor was very proactive. The city council, the aldermen inside of Chicago was very proactive. Minnesota has been having a civil war or battle royal inside of our state for the last 2 years. And that's even amongst the Democratic Farm Labor Party, because you have the Socialist Party now. And all of that infighting, Rodney, these people don't trust each other. This is why it makes it the perfect place. They don't trust each other. They're not really working with each other. And you can see it in practice. That's why nothing is working. That's why they are attacking the mayor. That's why they are attacking the governor. And they are fighting on so many fronts, not only just inside of the state, but also with the federal government, which is different in Illinois. In Illinois, with Governor Pritzker, you didn't see the Republicans inside of Illinois attacking the governor. You didn't see inside of Chicago the Republicans inside of Chicago attacking the mayor. You didn't see that. People were like, hey, they wanted to get ICE out of there. And I think that is the difference with Minnesota at this moment.
So what is the role of the Minnesota citizens? Are they writing and calling their elected officials and basically demanding that they put forth plans to protect them and that they speak publicly on do's and don'ts? I just want to know,
we have a very intelligent voter base here, probably one of the smartest in the country. So people are actively writing. That's the one thing about this state. People are educated and they're very active in politics. The issue that you have is you're asking people to act that hasn't been active in quite some time. And because you asked a coward to move doesn't mean that the coward is going to become a brave lion. And so I don't think, just my 2 cents, I think the people have to do what the people should always do, put it in their hands. And as I said to Lee before you got on, we just need to sit still. You go get bare necessities, don't pay no gas, don't go to no restaurants, don't give none of these corporations a dime, and you let them talk to Trump. Because when you shut all this down and you treat it like COVID, where you refuse to move and people ain't showing up to work, they're not showing up to school, and the governor can say, hey, we'll take a bond and we'll cover all of these things. We got a no eviction, we got a no eviction moratorium in the state. We got a moratorium on people's electric and water bills and utilities and things of that nature. And the state will cover whatever the late fees may be or whatever the cost may be for those families who cannot afford it. And people just sit they behind still. That's the way to beat them. But as long as we're constantly putting money into this system, as long as we're paying and doing these things, then because the rest of the people just want to get it back to normal. They just want to party some more. As I told Lee last night, folks are still at karaoke. They still at the clubs. When we say that we're not going to Timberwolves games, when the Timberwolves games have a home game and you don't see nobody sitting courtside and people are refusing to show up, that's when it becomes a national conversation. And I've noticed, Rodney, unlike other situations that have been highly publicized in the past, notice you have not had an NFL player nor an NBA player say anything publicly. So you know that it must be a gag order on them behind the scenes, because typically that is a conversation. I haven't heard a Timberwolves say anything about anything. I haven't heard a Vikings say anything about anything. How about a Twins player? How about a Wilds player? No, none of them has said anything about anything. You don't think that there's Latino players on the Twins? You don't think that there's African Americans on the Vikings and on the Timberwolves? You don't think that there's white folks who can't relate to Renee Good over there on the Wild? While all of these millionaires and billionaires are owners, look, Alex Rodriguez owns the Timberwolves. He's Latino. Like, think about that type of absentness that's happening. That's why the citizens must just sit it out. The best strategy is to make it a ghost town so the rest of the world see that these people are just going door to door like the Gestapo, that you're not putting no money in their pockets, and then you force people to see Trump for really who he is.
What do you think about the folks that are following ICE around? You think that's
crazy?
Well, that answers that question.
I mean, like really.
So
I mean,
you're just following trouble around.
They just shot the woman in the face. I mean, like, look, man, I'm just saying, like, look, I think neighbors should take up for neighbors. That's why I say everybody just go in and you protect your neighborhood, you protect your home, you protect your, because when you do it that way, they can't say these are out of towners now. They can't say, like I said again, they're calling us the resistance. When they say that we're the resistance, they're automatically calling themselves an occupied force. When they say that when they call the citizens the resistance, they're saying that they are the occupied force. So that's what I would suggest. But you said as a small business, why would I? Well, you may have people who come with necessities, but that is a part of it. I mean, you could have people who come to work, but what if one of your employees get their brains blown out on their way to work? Like there's just a lot that goes into it. And people said the same thing with COVID. Like, hey, why would I not? I had people that were telling me COVID was a fraud until they caught COVID. I was like, yo, man, I had family members who were dying because of COVID, and they weren't believing that COVID was real. It was a lot of people in our community thought COVID was fake. And in these situations, the real truth of it all is it's going to take sacrifice by the citizens in Minnesota to get these people off our back. And if we're not willing to sacrifice anything, then we're going to deal with this government who's willing to sacrifice us.
So, Thomas, a couple of things. One,
I like that point. Good point.
Has ICE approached? Well, is your state an open carry state? And if so, has ICE approached anyone that's open carry? And then the second piece to that is when you say, neighbors, protecting neighbors and stay inside and protect your home. Now that they're authorized or they are going door to door, how do they protect their homes and their neighborhoods?
So we are conceal and carry state. And no, there has not been.
So is it open carry or you can only conceal and carry?
Conceal and carry. Okay. So we're conceal and carry. Now we ain't the South. We ain't the Wild West neither. This thing is new to us here as far as that. But they have not had any situations where they ran up on anyone who's had weapons. But I will say, once again, those people who carry those weapons are probably not going out following ICE. They're not going out trying to mix it up with them neither, because people understand, like, yo, this is not the police. If you get into it with these folks, you're dealing with the DOJ, you're dealing with the feds. Now, it's not saying that people are scared. I think the mindset for a lot of folks is, hey, if it comes my way, I'm going to deal with it. And, this is a lot different because we know from the last time we had people who showed up, a lot of white folks who showed up who weren't from here. And a lot of these are agent provocateurs. And that's something that people have to think about, the agent provocateur piece. We dealt with that already with George Floyd. And that's part of what they're saying consistently over the news is George Floyd, George Floyd, George Floyd, George Floyd. These people took an L in their mind. They felt like the governor was soft. They felt like the mayor was soft, and they're not going to let it go. As far as how you protect your neighbors, if we are a conceal and carry state in most of these houses, I would say in these neighborhoods, there's someone who there's plenty of guns around here. And we have dense population, especially in Minneapolis. Minneapolis is a little different than St. Paul, but we have dense populations. There's guns on every street. And so if there's an issue, they have neighborhood associations that are already set up. Homeowners know how to communicate with their neighbors, or whatever the case may be. There's ways for you to be able to protect your neighbors.
So that's a good question. And I was going to get to that. You said homeowner association. I don't know if you live in a planned neighborhood or not, bro, but I wonder if they are planning on deploying neighbors to protect their actual neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? Like, is the homeowner associations talking to the residents like, yo, we may need to actually set up a neighborhood watch or a neighborhood patrol to make sure that our neighbors are taken care of and not harassed by anybody unnecessarily.
Yeah.
I know that here in Georgia, there are lots of homeowner associations and neighborhood associations. I live in one of them. and I would be curious to see what conversations may be had if there were a threat of ICE coming here to either Atlanta or the Atlanta area. You know, there's already some
Too many
movement.
guns. Too many guns. There's too many guns to mess with y'all down there. Listen, they ain't messing with Atlanta. They ain't messing with the folks out in Vegas. Like they know where the people got the guns. See, the thing is, like Jamar's talking about, there's still retreat laws in the state of Minnesota. Even though you have conceal and carry, if you get in a shootout and you kill somebody, you still got to do a mandatory 3 years here. So it's still
wow. Wait, say that again.
So even if you get into a shootout with a person and somebody's like trying to kill you, you kill them, you still got to do a mandatory 3 years here.
You get sentenced
automatically. Yes, mandatory. Yeah.
For protecting yourself.
There's no stand your ground laws, none of that stuff whatsoever. Hey, listen, man, I went to school with these folks. Listen, it's different in Indiana. In Indiana, you can shoot at the police if you want to. If the police mean you harm in the state of Indiana with the Castle Doctrine, you can shoot at the police. And if they can prove that the police was trying to do you bodily harm, you can actually get away with it. You can't do that here. Everything here, man, is everybody. It's the old soccer mom rule. Y'all both wrong. And that's how they operate here. That's that whole Minnesota nice thing. Is everybody's both wrong, right? So it's a lot different, and people understand that. I will say that they've been targeted in some of the areas and how they've been moving. So it hasn't been a rhyme or reason, and they have not really been running up in heavily dense black areas. That situation that happened over north, they chased that man off Highway 94. That was a situation where they found him on 94, probably used the air tag to find him, and they chased him from 94 into that black community. That was not a community that they were intentionally trying to target. So it's a lot. I saw that piece that was online. They said that most of these people are coming from Wisconsin into Minnesota. So they're getting a lot of people from Wisconsin. They're staying in Wisconsin. A lot of them are
that little shooter boy, that little 14-year-old boy that had the AR back in the day.
Rittenhouse. And so to Rashi's point about the 3,000, all the 3,000 Rashi is not here. A lot of them are in the town right over in Wisconsin. And so they're coming over from Wisconsin over. So no, the shooting happened when they chased the young man. That was Thursday. And so when they chased him, I think that was Thursday, Wednesday or Thursday, one of those days. It's all kind of like a blur at this point.
Oh, they all meshed together.
Yeah, it's like, dude, it's the same day. Now we have the Proud Boys and these clowns coming in town that's going to be downtown today. And so they're asking people, they're going to be going through Riverside.
Oh, there's a Proud Boy rally today?
Yep, they're going to be here.
Isn't that the same thing as ICE?
Pretty much. No, pretty much.
So, Brother Barry, it sounds like y'all are in a kind of a pickle, but how is the watch doing right now?
So the watch,
I'm spreading it here, and hopefully it's showing up on the thing. But how is the watch growing? Are people adopting?
Oh, people are so to it. But the good news is that we are officially in the Apple Store now, and we're going to be.
Congratulations.
Yes, and when we go into Apple, you'll have full access to the power of the app, full access, and that means from the notifications to the database to everything. And so for me, she said, "Are the Black Panthers here?" The Black Panthers are not here, but the Black Panthers are not here. I know that they probably have a chapter. But a lot of people are kind of somewhat like on the fence, like they don't necessarily want to, because they look at it like it was a white woman got killed. Like that's a lot of the rhetoric. We had a lot of rhetoric even before all of this. You guys know what people were saying, that black folks need to sit it out, let white folks deal with it. That was a larger part of the sentiments until the other day. He said, if these MFs interrupt or make me late anyway for my 1:30 haircut appointment, I'm going to call immigration on their ass. Hilarious. Well, I think for the most part, we don't have anything of the sort. They putting out videos in New York and they're putting videos out in Philadelphia. But what I will cautious people is remember Leader J and remember that group. And then we found out the Leader J was what? He was a part of MACA. So be careful.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yes. So people need to be careful, because when folks get to hopping online talking about they're gonna put a hole in a chest of ice that you can see through, and that video start popping up with that brother, these are what the Republicans are going to use as terroristic threats, and they will bomb that organization. They will kill those members, and somehow that brother will get away unscathed. So be careful. And I'm always like, listen, no disrespect to nobody out there, but you know, some of these brothers that be coming off here looking like they really ain't been down in the ghetto for quite some time. I worry about those guys as COINTELPRO agents.
So I mean, I believe we have a right to defend ourselves, and whether we defend ourselves or not, they're still going to victimize, brutalize, and terrorize us.
Yeah.
Not only kidnapping, raping. I just read reports where they're in the detention camps, they're stepping on brothers' scrotums and crushing nuts. There's all kind of atrocities that are happening. And I say, whatever we hear about is just a tip. That means there's much more. And I have a couple of concerns. One is
he went from nuts to tip. I'm confused.
well, you know, it's
all over the ball.
You know, they getting the whole thing, right? I also mentioned rape, but
what in the Rashi?
Are people
what in the Rashi?
are people looking at the impact, and this is going to be down the road, but the psychological impact on young people? I saw where they attacked the high school. Children seeing
several high schools, brother.
So okay, children being attacked.
That's even worse.
Children seeing other children attacked. Children seeing their parents attacked. Simply children seeing everyday citizens being attacked. Is anybody talking about, because we typically don't, I mean, we may see some signs of it, but usually it's not till later on that these things really manifest themselves.
Yeah.
And also, kind of like with slavery, when you see people constantly surrendering, then you tend to get a surrendering mindset, almost like a cowed dog. And at some, you know, we all have a right to exist, and that's survival. And when that right is being infringed upon, then people eventually are going to react, and usually it's an explosion. I always say, well, let's plan it so when we explode, we can explode and push the shock wave in the right direction. Is there any organizing going on?
So I would say a couple of things, and this is to everybody nationally. Talking about what you're gonna do on social media is the dumbest shit you can do at this moment. So no, there's no organizing. When I see people saying where they're going to be online, you're not organizing. You're telling them where you're going.
But is there actually organizing?
Brother, I'm telling you, no. Because the idea is everybody is hooked on this dopamine high where they got to say everything out their mouth on this white man's internet and how they feel and their emotions. If people just stuck and did it with their neighbors, you can go next door and you can organize that way. If you got to be all the way going into these areas, they have command posts. I know what it's like to be investigated by the feds. When I was 12 years old and they raided our house, we knew they were raiding because we saw them surveillancing our house in the alleys down the road. And we heard them talking. And we got used to noticing how they were taking pictures of our house. We got to know exactly what the vans looked like. Later on, when I started hustling, we understood that. Man, they had people out faking like they were fixing on the streets on a Memorial Day. And it was the feds the entire time. So when you come from it, you understand that's why they're not necessarily dealing with people who are of that ilk who know. And those are not the people that's out there. Who you're dealing with is typically white folks, lesbian black women, and some brothers that's pretty much been, you know, like, I ain't saying that they're scary or anything, but they ain't been in that type of situation where they understand the environment. You're not dealing with people who's going to pause, look at the situation, and check out the patterns, because you have to study them. That's why I say be patient. Be patient, be calm, and look around at your surroundings. Every time you see them, what do you see first before they show up? How do you know exactly what they're doing? That should be the conversation. But if you can't stop and breathe and all you're doing is following these people around and then they follow you around and they're targeting you, you're not really studying. And so I just feel like, no, there's no secret planning. Should there be? Yes, there should be. I think national organizations like the NAACP, the Urban League, and other places should be stepping up and telling people how they should be able to do this. Communities should be trying to figure out how they can feed each other. But I also feel like that demand should also be put on county, city, and the state as well, because Donald Trump has waged war on the state of Minnesota. You can't tell me he has not, because he's cut off funding for things like food stamps. He cut off funding for things like childcare. So when you start cutting off funding, the next thing should be we're going to withhold our state taxes because it's state time. And we're going to put all that into making sure kids eat, making sure that all these other necessities that our state needs. And when you're out in whatever the case, God willing, then we'll be able to sue the federal government for what the federal government allowed to happen to the state. And one thing that you brought up, Rodney and Lee, that I think is important, that during George Floyd, we heard a lot of, but I have not heard since this has happened on our streets, the word trauma. They whooped our behind with the word trauma this, trauma that. And I notice when it's us doing it to each other, trauma is something they want to bring up. But when it is state imposed or it's federally imposed on us, that is the true traumatization, because people feel like there's nothing that they can do. And it's overwhelming. We've had the situation in 2020, and then we're following up with this. Like, people have just gotten over 2020. Now just imagine going through this and having the idea that at any moment people are being stopped in Target. They're pulling people out of Target. The Latino restaurants have shut down. There was a story that ICE came and ate at a restaurant, Lee, and then they doubled back and got the employees at the restaurant.
Wow.
Like you,
but both of you all spoke to withholding state taxes going to the Fed. But I talked to you separately, and both of you all mentioned this at the same time. I had to think about this. I'm not opposed to what you're saying. I'm thinking, though, that states are not doing that as a tactic, because their leadership has political aspirations, and they don't want to have that as something that could be used against them during the campaign. That's the only thing I can think of.
I think if you did that and you thought outside the box, the American people are against this. And I think if we were really thinking objectively, and what we will find out without Elon Musk tampering with the voting boxes, you're going to find out that not as many people voted for Trump as we think. That's why he's so unpopular. That's why so many people are so disgusted, even Republicans. I've seen comments where people said, I'm a Republican, and when it's time to vote, I'm voting all the asses out. I don't want a Republican to win. We don't need to win the next 5 elections. I've seen that from vaunted Republicans online. And I'm telling you, people are looking at this, and it's really on people to think out the box. Now, a governor who said he was going to withhold his income taxes is running for president, and that's Gavin Newsom. He said that, oh, you're going to be on our streets? Well, hey, we'll just withhold taxes. You don't want to have FEMA cover what's going on? Okay, we know how much taxes that we're putting into the federal government. We won't take care of them little red states. We'll take that money and we'll make sure we make our citizens whole. He said that. Now, one thing that's true about politics in this country, that if it starts in California, it becomes the wave. You just have to step up, grab the torch, and ride that wave. If Governor Walz, he's taking all this abuse, why not step out and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. We are not going to send you taxes to terrorize us. We are not being protected. You are withholding money that we are contributing to you, and you're saying that it's fraud. But hey, weren't you the ones inside of the federal government cutting all of these programs saying it was fraud? Well, you guys been frauding for a minute. Tell me who inside of the Congress got impeached? Who inside of the Senate got impeached? Who did you impeach in any of these offices? If we're frauding, if what you said Elon Musk was doing with Doge was right, that's according to you, then you didn't stop anything from the federal government. So I just think it's all about having leadership that have courageousness. And I do believe what Rodney is saying is real. People have to write and push them to that point, and we have to stand on that. And I think it should be a political awakening for Americans. Do not trust because you vote a person in that they know exactly what to do, that these are courageous people. They know how to sell you a story to get your vote. They don't always know how to speak truth to power.
Okay. So I know we got some folks from the Twin Cities on. I'm very much thankful that they're giving their comments in the commentary. You know, I can't even imagine what this is like. Again, as you said, Thomas, it's not everywhere. It is in a concentrated area, but still, the constant threat of this expanding and them being on your block. You know, these cats running up in your child's school, these cats blasting off um, flashbang grenades and or pepper spray on the block that you go down every day to get home on time to get to your elderly parent, elderly partner, sickly parent, sickly partner, whatever. This is again the highlight of American news right now, even in even above what we're still threatening to Greenland. The fact that we've seized yet another Venezuelan oil tanker. That's the sixth one that we've seized thus far. The fact that, as you've commented on multiple times, Brother Barry, the Epstein files still have not been released in full, and even when they say they released them, there's more pages that miraculously come up. Above the fact that the dollar, as you said, Rodney, just the other day, is weakening heavily.
Heavily.
Powell said that he believes that the Fed has overstated employment rates by at least 60,000 jobs for the past 3 to 4 months. Now, if you take notes, a couple of months we were simply creating around 40,000 jobs. So if they're overstating by 60 and we created 40, bro, that's a negative 20, bro.
It's devastating.
That's a negative 20. That means folks are losing jobs right, left, and right. Rodney, I told you, as I've said on plenty times on here, you know, I felt that, and I saw it coming. The military was going to be the only job that folks could get. They are forcing people to work for the federal government through the military because they're trying to beef up that force. They're trying to beef up that force and bring them home. That's bad. That's very bad. Because to me, that sounds like they are trying to ramp up forces and on the motherland, the homeland, whatever the hell you want to call it, in order to keep the citizenry in check here. That's why they want to bring folks back. That's
You
why
talking
they
about
want to
bringing
beef
people
up.
back from Europe and forward deployed bases?
Yep, yep, yep.
So let's. That's
And
something that
all. Go ahead.
we keep talking about what they're going to do, and all these things are to hurt us. And as they're doing these things consistently and actively hurting us, we're not doing anything. Well, not doing anything isn't stopping them from hurting us. Not doing anything isn't stopping them from going door to door. It's not stopping them from going to, Brother Barry said, multiple schools. It's not stopping them from pepper spraying people on the streets, even though I read this late last night that there's a judge's order that says they cannot
Right,
do certain things. But like, who's going to enforce those things if the police aren't aren't doing it? So at
right,
some point, we keep saying what we're not going to do thus and so, because if we do thus and so, then they're going to add more oppression. They're adding the oppression anyway. And I just read this morning that 45 is once again talking about the Insurrection Act. And so people say, well, we don't want to do this because he might invoke it. He is going to invoke it anyway. And even if he didn't officially invoke it, he'll implement parts of it. So I guess my question is, what are we waiting for? Are we just waiting to, instead of watching neighbors die, uh, people across town, are we waiting to act when it comes directly to us? Or are we willing to, what Brother Barry has been saying consistently, get in front of this thing, because this thing, historically, once the shooting starts, and it has started, there it doesn't end until the people end it or the military ends it. That is the history of things like this throughout the world. So what are we waiting on?
Well, I don't think we're waiting. I think the majority of Americans are waiting because they don't know what to do. They're in a state of disbelief that this is actually real. As Brother Barry said earlier, they still at the club party and like ain't nothing going on.
Yeah,
Hey,
You
but
know,
they've been in
when
that state
you're
of
dealing
belief.
with the people.
But they've been in that state of belief ever since it happened. And you and Brother Barry just said, I think is the key. Everybody are not leaders. And yes, there are still people at the club, but there are people who know. There are people who have the ability. So we're not waiting and looking for the people who don't know and still partying at the club. I'm talking about the people who do know and have the ability. Are they organizing at all? I mean, or are they sitting and waiting too? Because if they're sitting and waiting, I mean, all we're waiting for is the inevitable.
Well, I think again the folks in the know are doing what you suggested earlier, right?
Are they?
Calling, huh?
Are they?
I don't know because I'm not plugged in. Unfortunately, I'm not plugged in where I am right now. So
Brother Barry,
I
are they?
I think
I think that people are trying, like, we got a organized boycott on the 23rd that's taking place where they're asking people to boycott, like a blackout. You have people who have been, going to Target and going to the state capitol doing things. I just don't think that it's, the NAACP, we just had a joint statement that was done on yesterday. I didn't make it to that one because I'm just focused on the watch. I'm just being honest with you. And if I'm going to be real, the watch is the way to go. And the watch is the way to go because of the facial recognition, the voice recognition, and then being able to communicate with your community without being spied on by the government.
Because it's secure peer to peer, right?
It's secured peer to peer. And you don't have to be talking with Trump's friends, allowing them to put that information back. You also can keep track of your loved ones they are uh, if they are picked up by ICE with their phones or where they're going or what have you. You could also have that video and that audio as well. So there's just things that we are already equipped to do, and we were equipped to do it without thinking about this particular situation. But I feel like there's ways to go, but I have to be mindful in my town. People have made a lot of money off of what happened with George Floyd. So for a lot of people, y'all, they run it to the front hoping that when they get on the mic, they get another bag. And a lot of it's performative. We're already hearing, like, oh, because it's a coalition of mothers that's coming together. Like, there's not fathers and men who are not going to be violent. It's like you could already see people kind of going back into their performative role. Like, okay, this is what we did. This is how we got the biscuits the last time. Let me go get them biscuits. But
with
people,
some gravy.
have to understand this is different. And so you don't need to break it off into cycle. You need to break it off as a group. And you don't always have to be in front of the camera when you're planning. A lot of the planning, a lot of the ideas, we should just show up. And Rodney, let me just clarify when I talk about the streets and your neighbors. We have one thing going for us that ICE is not prepared for. When that hawk gets negative 35, and you out here fooling with us, and you don't know this terrain, your ass is grass. Your ass is grass, and there ain't gonna be a lot of people trying to run in here fooling with the locals around here. And all we have to do is let Mother Nature take its course. It's cold as shit outside right now. And I guarantee you, if they planning to be out there, they won't be out there long. So you just have to understand, sit tight, get your things right, get your cardio up. Because if you're gonna be able to fight, you got to be able to be with this. Make sure you are taking care of yourself. Order you some gas mask. Go pick up some gas masks.
There you go.
Take up some things that you're gonna need to do. So that's what I think you should do. But if you are just out in the midst and you just throwing snowballs at ice and they're shooting tear gas and rubber bullets and real bullets, then you just agitating them and they're using you to bring in more. If they brought in 2,000 more, they said they got $25 million that they put on the contracts that they have, that they're still trying to get more ICE agents. You have to understand what it is, and then you have to be able to counter it, but you have to get off of their lines of communication. That's why I say, hey, you won't, some things I'll say, but I won't say much online, because I feel like, hey, we've already invented a space where you can have these conversations in groups by yourself.
Can you tell people how to get the app?
So you can go to the watchapp.org, and it's just the exact way I said it, not www, it's just the watchapp.org. And we will be, hopefully within the next hour or 2 hours or so, we should be inside of the Apple Store, listed as the Watch Safety app. And you can download it from there. And when you download it from there, you have access to a bevy of things. Right now, until January 21st, it's free. And so we've been trying to give it away. But I also understand people, they like the whistles. So I gotta hop off. Let me take a break. I gotta do this thing with the NAACP. I'll be right back.
Okay, yeah, you stopped mid sentence. I'm like, did he break him?
They said my name, so they said my name to give a report. So I've been kind of listening. So I'll be right back, y'all.
Okay.
All
Hey,
right.
please, let's get Rashi in, because I don't want to raise Rashi's time. We need Rashi in the building. Rashi, what you think about all this? They come to Kansas next.
Man, how dare you pull me out the basement under a pile of dirty clothes to ask? Good morning, fellas.
Good morning, Sister Russia.
Peace.
All right. Uh, what is Kansas City prepared to do for ICE? Was the question? Am I correct? I mean, I hate to be rude, but I had to tap back in. What are we doing? We are, for one, I mentioned earlier, legislatively requiring agents, especially federal, to expose their face. Secondly, we are actively fighting ICE being able to purchase and or rent warehouses and locations that will allow them to set up headquarters, not just within the city limits, but we're actively greasing palms with our not lesser, let me say that better, smaller municipalities located around this greater Kansas City area, begging them also not to accept the federal monies that rain down when you accept an ICE warehouse. All right. I do believe our local Kansas City Public School District has a very anti ICE agenda. We have been trained as instructors what to do at the actual point of entry when dealing with ICE agents and whatnot, all the way up until if us coming in the building could potentially let another agent in, we are to just walk away with the children. With the children. If we feel there's a anti-ICE protocol within the district itself. I do not know what the charter and or parochial schools are up to. So while I can't, and my favorite are musty white, or I call them alabastards. Our alabastards is down there at the park, uh, with their signs and they hairy underarms and all that, but truly burning candles and rubbing the crystals and stomping and doing rain dances down there in the public space, saying what Bob Marley said, that until the philosophy uh that holds one race superior and another inferior is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned, there will always be war. War wherever that sentiment exists, and I believe Haile Selassie is where he got that from. So, yes, we do have anti-ice sentiment. Like Thomas said, it's cold. So yeah, you gonna have to say fuck. We saying fuck ice from the house. We screaming it from our warm, from with our bodies warm, but we screaming it out the window. Fuck you, ice. Because to be out there and really battling it means you're not just battling ice, but also the the elements. And so, yes, brother Rodney, we do in Kansas City not per se appreciate ice. However, again, we are a Republican state. We do have hot pockets of Democratic behavior happening in St. Louis, Jeff City, and Kansas City, right? However, uh, when a city is run by rich white people who come here to die, you're going to get in tax incentives for ICE headquarters. You're going to get the dudes who didn't quite qualify for the police, but somehow now they're federal ICE agents, which is weird. It's mad weird to me. Look, let me tell you what I got. Some intel was a lady saying, she said, it was a journalist, Lee. She said, fuck it, I'm going to apply for ICE, right? Bruh, she didn't even get through
Yeah.
with her P test, and she was in. They had her on the docket for the next. She was a data analyst. She ain't like she was boots on the ground. But the point was, they needed her so bad that they did not fully vet her because they would have known she was an investigative journalist and she was on a damn muffin top. So, uh, we're not talking about a crack whip, you know, train of behavior here. This is ragtag. This is, as my grandma would call it, ragtag scumbum, because they are allowing. And Kansas City got a shitload of them, just white dudes who are for one now fired. Some of them are actual federal agents from other agencies who, instead of being furloughed, Thomas, they ice. Is that some crazy shit or what? You have an option now. You can go home and sit down to my, oh, the government fired me. Or because you are already vetted as a federal agent, you can opt to switch departments. Okay, never mind on that. So there's a lot happening. But in Kansas City, not the tenants, all the people that they would like to terrorize, they just don't exist. And last but not least, and I'm actually out.
You know,
Our
last year.
his our Hispanic community
Uh-huh.
ain't playing with these motherfuckers. You heard me. They have a very strong chamber of commerce. Very strong. They are also weaving their ways into our legislative community. They are in our city council. They're on the student council. They own it. If it's a council, they own it. Okay. Also, them motherfuckers that took over the groceries. If you eating, if you eating food in a certain region of Kansas City, it's because the Hispanics have opened up their own, the grocery industry. So in Kansas City, if you think you're gonna run up on La Raza, you gonna find them, but you're not gonna find them in the streets with all that red, white, and green. You're gonna find them at the local police station because the secondary chief of police is the dude, right? And then the dude over the agriculture. We have a strong Hispanic agriculture tie. So and then don't even start about manufacturing and the labor load. They still picking them apples and stuff for them white folks up in the orchards up here. So when you get ready to come for the Kansas City Latin, you got to be ready, because they're not on that foolishness. They have established themselves in Kansas City since for the last 110 years.
So, um, we've talked about what the people should be doing, what the people are doing. We've talked about ICE policies or work instructions, if you will, best practices in Minnesota, in Kansas City. The next step for the next logical step for these cats, if they're not going to totally push and take over, let's say Minnesota, right, is to, as you said, go to another city and do the same thing. I think this is really a terror campaign. I think this is a campaign to put the American public on notice that we can reach you, we can touch you at any moment.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to show you that the courts are not here to help you, to make us feel helpless.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to show you that the president is on our side. We're going to show you that Congress is so inept that they're not going to do anything to stop us either. So either you comply or we'll be back.
Mm-hmm.
The next time we come back, it may be worse. Is this then, as Thomas said earlier, their foot on the scale? I won't even say thumb for the election coming up. Is this a terrorist plot to make folks weary or put second thoughts in folks' mind about the upcoming elections? Do they want to vote? Is it safe for them to vote? Yes, Rodney, comply or die. Absolutely. Is this what the end game for this is? Because they've been pushed out in other cities already. So is this potentially what the end game is? Go ahead, Rodney.
Well, I think that we're looking at it a little bit slanted. One way or the other, we're being terrorized. A little terror versus a lot of terror doesn't make a difference to the person being terrorized at the moment. You're being terrorized.
Right.
And I talked to a legislator. And when I talked to the legislator told me, well, I'm just a legislator. I'm just a legislator. They used to be our leaders, so-called, right? But he said, I'm just a legislator. And I says, well, what are you going to do? And he says, well, we're going to pass some legislation on not wearing masks. We're going to propose it. Our legislature only meets every other year. And they just met just under a year ago, which means that 13 months at least we would have to wait for our legislature to come back into session, which means
they need an emergency session
now and then nothing is going to happen.
Hey, what's going on, bro?
So I said, well, let me.
Yes,
I said, what are you telling the people? How are you preparing the people? What information are you giving the people? And he says, well, we're going to have a town hall. I says, okay, what are you going to talk about at the town hall? And he had really nothing to talk about this, on how people could protect themselves, how people could prepare themselves, what was legal, what wasn't legal. And finally I says, hey, I need you to use your imagination. And believe it or not, this legislator still couldn't come up with anything other than in a 13 months, we're going to propose some anti-mask legislation. So what that told me was that the citizen is on their own. Mm-hmm. It also told me that our legislators have a lack of imagination or vision on what is coming up next. And so what I'm suggesting is, if you look at it from a historical standpoint, once again, once the shooting starts, once they start going for asking for papers, once they start going door to door, then it only gets worse. And some people say, well, he'll enact the Insurrection Act. He is talking about doing that. I just got another bulletin right now in your state, Brother Barry. Mm-hmm. And and I encourage everyone to read the insurrection is not one act, it's multiple things that they call it insurrection act.
Yeah.
But if you do a Google search, you can pull it up. It's not that long. Read how it restricts your constitutional, we thought were our constitutional rights.
Yep.
And it's not just what it lays out that can be done. It's the power that he will take beyond what it lays out can be done. And he has unilateral authority. He doesn't need to go to Congress. He doesn't need to go to the courts. That ability is built into the act. So waiting, you will only wait to get more of what you are already getting, which is more hurt, harm, violence, kidnappings, detentions, crushed nuts, and rapes. That's what you're going to get.
Well, they are floating out the 25th Amendment as far as him as well. That is some of the conversation that's been floated out. And I do know that Judge Kavanaugh, as well as Judge Roberts, because now they understand that history is in the balance, and what they've allowed to happen for so much, they're going to be the face of this. And now everybody, Kavanaugh don't want them called the Kavanaugh stops anymore. I didn't mean what I said when I said what I said. He's walking that back. Judge Roberts is saying he don't know what's up with all this lawlessness that's happening, not with the people, but from the government aspect. And so
that's what the hell you allow. You know
but once again, here's the truth of the matter. I think they know his health is not well. I think that they know that his Depends diaper is smelly quite often. And I think that what we keep seeing is the showman. And that's why we keep on getting the Archie Bunker quotes. That's why we keep getting a lot about a nothing. That's why he's talking about Greenland the way fingers and shouting and all of those things. But I think that there's a lot happening behind the scenes, just like with Biden. And I do feel like there is a day of reckoning that everybody is fearful of when you're dealing with an insane man that's willing to drive everybody off the cliff. Because
what's up with the president of the United States flipping the bird at a factory worker for?
Because he is a reality TV star. And let me tell you something. If I had a chance to talk to Congress after this is over, a couple things we would be done with. Reality TV, gone. Social media companies broken up. Newspaper corporations broken up. I'm taking the sledgehammer and I'm killing it all. And the reason why you have to is because the decay starts there. The decay is when we see things that are orchestrated and we're saying that it's reality. When we're allowing people to augment thoughts. That's the only way to get behind this. You know, when you have them buying TikTok so that they can manipulate people more. So that's what I look at that. Now, as far as what can the people do, Rodney, I just think that people have to learn how to go back to old school things. It's just going to take guerrilla style tactics, and people are going to have to do less talking on the camera and more talking behind the scenes, and start being more compassionate for each other. We are losing empathy and compassion for one another. And I don't, man, when you seen things about Jim Crow and you see all of the lynchings and you see how white folks will say these epithets to lifeless bodies. And then you watch how we talk online, we talk like them. We behave like them. No one never used to talk bad about the dead. Like that was unspoken. Like you didn't have to say that you don't talk ill of the dead. They're gone. Look at how people talk online. Look how when someone is going through something, how we lack empathy and we're literally blaming the victim time and time again. Trump is a reflection of the collective psyche of Americans at this point. And the only way to get him out is for us collectively to change our psyche. And I'm going to tell you, we cannot wait on white folks to lead the charge because he has the psyche of a white lynch mob. And that lynch mob only has empathy or sympathy when they are in the crosshairs, when they have the numbers, when they have the power, they will step on people who are defenseless, people who are not attacking them. They don't need you to fight. They don't need you to fight to come after you, but you must build your defense and you must make plans and you must understand what's going on. So that's my 2 cents on it. I just think that people have to be more smart, and I think that we do have to do a better job of organizing off the grid and being able to talk and prepare for what's happening. But that's all you can do, because like I said, Rodney, ICE has been here for a couple of weeks. I have not seen them in my neck of the woods, right? I have not seen them driving around. I have not ran into them. So I have not engaged with ICE. I've been at Wisdom's house because she lives in the city. So I'm always driving by, even when she don't know I'm driving by, to make sure that if there's a problem, I'm going to hop out. And like I told my kids, I'm not trying to get into it with ICE. But if I got to, that's just what it's got to be. Because Sammy McDowell's nephew, Michael McDowell, he got shot in the face. That I know that young man who got shot in the face with that rifle, with that tear gas cartridge. I know him. Good kid. And he got shot in the face. And you know who I have not seen anybody trying to interview around here? There's no sympathy for that brother. There's no sympathy. Hey, he got shot right after Good got shot. You would have thought he would have been on the news here. That shows you the lack of empathy and sympathy that we have in this state for Black men. Oh, he didn't die, so there's no need to feel sorry for him. Imagine the traumatic experience that he has, that someone picked up a rifle, that he was just doing the right thing. If somebody has a rifle and they have it up to your body, I'm going to move that rifle out the way too, because if your finger slips, I don't need you shooting me. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. But after he got shot, I don't see nobody trying to get that brother on their show. I don't see nobody saying, "Hey, what's up with brother Michael McDowell?" Y'all know that Michael owns Sammy Eatery right there that we are always at. You guys, we were leaving when we were at the NAACP meeting. That restaurant that's right next door to it, his uncle owns that restaurant, and Michael owns that restaurant. So people come there all the time. So we all know Michael. We all know Michael McDowell.
How much money did his GoFundMe page raise?
Who? Michael's?
Yes.
Michael ain't got a GoFundMe. He doesn't have a GoFundMe. Nobody, like I said again, there is no empathy or sympathy for people like that. And another thing that we should talk about is GoFundMe, and the way that GoFundMe allow bigots to always raise money. Once again, going back to the Watch app, this is why we have our own. We need to stop putting money in the hands of these people, because when that young boy was trying to raise dollars for what happened in Texas, they said they couldn't raise money on their site. When that white woman in Rochester called that Somali boy a nigger, they let her raise money, $400,000 on their site. At some point, we have to get it. And part of the fight back, Rodney, is change behavior. Change behavior, how we treat each other, how we see each other. Like Dr. King said, we're talking about the Weekend of King. He said love is the only thing that conquer hate. He wasn't talking about us loving our oppressor. He was talking about us loving each other enough to stand up for each other, loving each other enough so that we don't sell each other out, so that we can get financial gain and we can get some type of political power. That's what he was talking about. That's the only thing that we can do at this point to stand up against this system. We have to change the way that we're going about things. And the way that you got your butter biscuits in 2020, locals, I'll keep saying it. This is not 2020. This is the federal government. This is not the state police. They already have supreme spy technology here that they are unleashing on this city. And as I said again, Portland, Maine is the next stop. Once they finish with us, they're going to Portland, Maine, and I'm hearing that campaign should start in a couple of weeks.
Why Portland, Maine?
Once again, another sanctuary city that they put people, and that's why people have to look at this. This kind of been things in the making. These are places that they were dropping off the illegal immigrants. That's why when the conservatives use these talking points, where people should be pushing back and saying, well, wait a minute. They were closer to the border getting out the country when they were in the South. How come you didn't drive those? Why did you drive those buses the opposite way? Why did you drive them to New York? Why did you drive them to Maine? Why did you drive them to Minnesota? Why did you drive them to Illinois or to California? Why did you drive them? You drove to Philadelphia and all these places. You did it. The Republicans did this. And the Republicans play this game so much and then they act like their hands are clean. Technically, if you really think about what they did, they broken the law. They are an accessory to a crime. Those governors are accessories to crime. If these people are here illegally breaking crimes, as they say, and they put them inside of a vehicle and they drove them to other cities, tell me that's not accessory.
Across state lines. Yeah.
What do they call that? Oh, that sounds like a what charge? A federal charge?
That sounds like a RICO.
That sounds like
especially
a RICO.
if they colluded.
That sounds
like a RICO if they colluded.
Come on now. I mean, that's just the facts. The laws are the laws. They use it for everybody else. But that's why people have to think and breathe, because in the end, what they are trying to dish, they should have to eat the entire meal themselves. But people have to really think about protecting themselves first. You got to make it to that point. So you can't fold. I'm not asking anybody to be on the bended knee, but I'm just a person who don't believe that going out there with whistles. I don't believe following ICE. I don't believe throwing snowballs at people that shooting bullets is a suggestion.
It's a good idea.
So one of the things that we didn't talk about is we talked about ICE, but as the economy is changing, the dollar is falling.
Well, hold on, Rodney. For $3, you should be able to get a piece of chicken, a piece of broccoli, and I think they said even a slice of cheese. That's according to Trump. They say you can make it out here for $3. Just $3 for a whole meal. Now you can't get $3.
I'm trying to figure out where the hell that $3 is going to spend it at.
You can't get a Happy Meal for $3.
Say that again. Yeah, you can't get a dollar meal for $3. Shit. Dollar meal is $5. I'm sorry, buddy. Go ahead. We got 15 minutes left, so keep going.
Yeah, and I know you. I want to. Hopefully, we transition into Dr. King a little bit more too. But this is my final question: is we talk about the federal government, and they are doing harm to us. But all this harm that they're doing is impacting employment. It is impacting childcare, because people are not sending their children to school. So because they're not sending their children to school, they have to stay home from work. They may not have a job when they go. I mean, it's like a ripple effect. Mm-hmm. And because when people get hungry, they need to eat. Mm-hmm. And a part of this harm and hurt is to put people in situations where they become desperate. You see domestic violence go up. You see crime go up, theft go up. What are people, communities doing to provide for themselves with food? And again, to protect themselves, not just from the federal government's craziness, but from people who may be coming in to do them harm because they're trying to survive too.
Well, that's what we were trying to, see what we can do with the pantry, because we do have children who are staying home and they're having to deal with the idea of not being in school because of fear. And, we had parents arrested while waiting at the bus stop by ICE. So I do believe that self-preservation is definitely one of those things. I think that people should be trying to figure out ways, but I'll be honest, even here, it's been a food desert before that, as you know. So we were already struggling with food shortage. We're already dealing with the idea that them cutting off the USDA funds already before that. So those are some of the things that we were already dealing with. It's just being able to depend on our neighbors. And maybe we don't got good neighbors in Wisconsin. Maybe we don't have good neighbors in Iowa and all of those other places. We have to really think about this idea of this liberal state being in the middle of all of this conservatism in the Midwest. You got to go to Illinois, which is Wisconsin in between us, before you run into another Democratic state, right? And then if you go from Illinois got to jump over Indiana, and hopefully Michigan is, because Michigan can be purple, and Ohio can be purple. And so it's just a lot of different moving parts, and you just hope humanity takes over. And that's the main thing. But as far as our people, we just have to, once again, make these sacrifices. Do we need to go on a vacation during this piece, or do we buy extra food and get that food to our family members who we know can't afford food? And that's important. If we're going to pivot and transition to Dr. King, that's what King would want us to do. He would want us to think long and hard about how we can make those specific sacrifices. I'm thinking about some of the people who I'm friends with, who may not have a space because they're worried about what could happen. You know, it's me and my boys here. Somebody might have to come stay in my basement. One of my boys might have to give up their rooms because somebody needs to come stay here because they can't
True that.
necessarily make it on their own. Right? Like these are the things that I'm thinking about. You know, like I said again, you know, I think about, you know, old girl house. Like, yeah, I got to make sure that, you know, her house, my mom house, I got 3 houses pretty much that I got to make sure people are good. So these are things that's always consistently on my mind as I go through all of these things. And this is not a time, y'all, to really get off into our bags about our feelings. Um, and we do have to start growing food, but we're in the dead of winter. We're in the dead of winter, man. We are in
Well,
hell
you
at
can
this
still use
point.
hydroponics though.
Huh?
You can grow stuff and you can use hydroponics. You can grow stuff inside.
I mean, you could. I mean, you definitely could, and I think people can start that process. But it's all about just you got to start that process, and if you ain't got no, because there's a lot of people who ain't got food. Once again, remember
Right.
this is a social welfare state, so you deal with a lot of impoverished people. And this is why King came here last, talking about the Poor People's March, right? Because he understood that it was a depth in the imbalance of economics and resources in the state of Minnesota. Um, I do want to say this about Dr. King because it's kind of apropos that all this is taking place when this is the same maniac who wanted to remove Dr. King as a paid holiday. And if I'm not replace it, he wanted, if I'm not mistaken, wanted to replace it with his birthday. This is the same maniac. And I think that if we're talking really direct, like truth to power, you know, as far as Dr. King, I do think that it's going to really take us a level of faith, Rodney, that we must have with one another and a level of belief. And even if we don't have it, we have to begin to work those muscles to get that back in this particular situation because there is nobody that's coming to save us. There will be no Superman knocking on the door. There'll be no great white hope that will come and save us. It's going to depend on us. And some of these things that we've been allowed ourselves to get away with degrading one another, disrespecting one another, as far as not trusting the opposite sex, not trusting our family members, not trusting our community, that's going to change. Because if not, you might end up being a victim. And so I think that in the spirit of King, in the spirit of what King will want us to do, you know, we don't need to find a convenient excuse to sit down. And we should not in this situation deal with moderation. We should ask for a full overturn of where it's at. That's it, Angela. We are it. And if we don't understand that we are it, and if we don't understand that this is all on us, then we are going to struggle for quite some bit. And that's just really what that boils down to. Not the vacation resorts that's owned by the Republicans that you say you hate. I like to point that out a lot. Those conservative Canadians that own a lot of the resorts that we travel to with the timeshares, they pump money back here into politics here. And these are part of those things. We don't like Target, but there's worse people than Target. So I just want us, as we are thinking about the spirit of Dr. King, we think about being organized. We think about having faith in one another. We think about sacrifice and what does it mean to have service to people that's beyond yourself. I got to battle with that every day because I don't like y'all human beings. So I got to figure out every day how to be kind because I really understand that. Like I only got a certain amount of time with y'all humans before I'm ready to be like, yo, man, what the hell is wrong with you? So
So let's be clear and be reminding folks who may have joined later. Please note that Dr. King's birthday is actually January 15th. So he was born January 15th, 1929. If he would have lived, he'd be 97 years old right about now, uh, knocking on the century. Uh, for all that we say he did not do, what he did do was inspire a movement toward integration faster than it probably would have been under natural circumstances. And we should all be thankful for some of that. Not all of it, but some of that.
So when we talk about
Um,
Dr. King, we always talk about integration, and integration was the thing that most of us are living lives right now that we would not be living if it wasn't for the many other things that Dr. King did for us. We wouldn't have the jobs that we have. We definitely wouldn't have positions of leadership, supervision, and management. Had it not been for Dr. King, all of those people who got fired who were women, whether black or white, all of the black people who got fired because they were black, though we would have never had those positions in the first place. The level of income that many of us have, we simply would not have it. So yes, integration was a thing of Dr. King, but it was far from the only thing, and it definitely wasn't the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to speak to the Poor People's Campaign that he was really pushing for at the end of his life, which was unification of everybody that
Mm-hmm.
was impoverished and pushing forward that agenda
Mm-hmm.
as well. So thank you, Rodney. I also wanted to slide in before we start giving our final comments. In memoriam, Claudette Colvin lost her life just the other day. If you're not familiar with Claudette Colvin, she's the young lady whom actually was the first person in Montgomery, Alabama to refuse a seat to a white person and was recognized by the NAACP. They did not roll with her. They chose to roll with Sister Rosa Parks 9 days later and her public stance for two reasons. First off, Claudette was unwed and pregnant at 15, and they chose not to roll with her. The third reason that folks often speculate too is
Did Lee freeze?
Claudette was a little darker than Sister Rosa Parks was. They thought Sister Rosa Parks, which is that
Oh, you
more appealing to would have been more appealing to the American public. I'm sorry, go ahead, brother. What you say?
no, you had frozen on my screen. I was just checking to make sure you're there.
Yeah, it did a reset on everybody. I don't know what the heck that was all about, but you came back up. So yeah, that's what it was about. And again, just wanted to give her her flowers. I did not read about Claudette in a book, believe it or not. I read about Sister Clothing when I was actually stationed in Montgomery, Alabama. I was reading the local newspaper and they had a huge article highlighting her back in 94, I want to say 94, 95, somewhere along that line.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely wanted to shout her out
Mm-hmm.
and give her her flowers
Mm-hmm.
without a doubt. Closing comments, gentlemen. Thomas, you want to start?
Man, this is all about denaturalization. And this is about something that I heard when I was growing up as a kid. They would say this to black folks before folks from West and East Africa got here: go back to Africa. And as our sister Joy Reid pointed out, since 1913, Republicans have been trying to fight this thing to make sure that the wealthy do not pay taxes. And it was FDR who did spread the wealth with the social programs, and the Republicans have been trying to rid themselves of that ever since. So it's two things that's at play here. The first thing is, black folks, this is a fight for our soul. We have to reclaim our soul, and we have to remember who we are and stand firm on who we are. And as Roddy brought up, it's not so much about integration. It's so much of how we handle and how we protect ourselves. Last but not least, in the spirit of Dr. King was no punk. I just want to make sure I say that again. Dr. King was no punk. He believed in nonviolent protests. Does not mean he didn't have no gun inside of his Bible. He had a Bible that was carved out with a gun because he knew he had to protect himself at home. He knew that sometimes that people had him targeted. So don't believe that all of this stuff that people tell you when folks say nonviolent, it's a tactic. Does not mean that you have to always be nonviolent. Just keep in mind, be calm, breathe. And it's always been us versus them.
And while he did state that he loved the turn, I'm sorry, that he did prefer to turn the other cheek. He loves some white women's cheeks. Go ahead, Rodney. What you say?
Oh my God.
You threw me off on that, but Lee. I want people also to know about Dr. King that we often say he learned from Mahatma Gandhi.
Mahatma Gandhi.
And the reality is, no, Mahatma Gandhi may have learned some stuff from us first.
Yes.
And Dr. King, when you look at the list of people that he names in his speeches, he talks about the people right here in America who were people that he looked up to and who influenced him, which were the same people that these other folks got this nonviolent concept to, that they then attributed that Dr. King got. So this is an American homegrown thing, just like Dr. King was American homegrown. And he earned his Nobel Peace Prize because he was a man of peace and nobody had to give him theirs. So Dr. King was the real deal. Dr. King, we can say he graduated at 15 and had a real degree in a time when meritocracy is not attributed to it properly, and that Black people somehow have infringed on white people. Dr. King set the standard. So, yes, January 15th was his birthday, but let's celebrate Dr. King every day, because if not, we may not have a day.
Any plans for the statue this year? Close out on that, and then I'll do my bit, and we can
So
move
we
on.
did the candlelight vigil Saturday because we always do it the Saturday before the actual birthday, and we showed America at the statue.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Look, family, as we always say about this time, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. If no one's told you they love you, we do ain't a damn thing you can do about it. Until next week, God willing, the creek don't rise. We'll be back next week. But until then, you all be good. You all be safe. I'm about to catch the Celtics game in a little bit. But before that, I need to go get one of them things. Y'all be easy.